In this video, I'm gonna go over CVD. Uh, yeah, and then I also need to make another video on footprint because the other one isn't in depth. Yeah, here's an example of absorption, so we'll get to that. All right, so essentially, what the CVD is it's calculated by delta. All right, so the larger the negative, the larger the candle is gonna be. So it's just a candle that represents the delta. All right, and delta is just market participants. Who's the more aggressive market participant? So, whenever we have absorption, if you don't know, it's aggressive selling, or in other words, aggressive delta into a level. So if you have a level for longs, you want aggressive negative delta, and then a passive buyer with maybe a couple stages absorbing those orders, and then aggressive market delta moving us further. All right, so the sequence is aggressive delta, absorption, and then aggressive delta another way. Obviously, it's not going to look this clean, but that's the concept. All right. There's two different formats you can use CVD for. So CVD, it uses a low for a reference, and then from that low, based off the delta and the price action, you see if there's someone absorbing. All right, that's essentially what it is. So first we'll talk about the absorption, right? How to see absorption. I just gave, well, you get the point. So I just gave a brief explanation of what absorption is. So let me show you. So here we're gonna have price, and then here I'm gonna have the CVD. We'll do a bullish and bearish scenario. So the CVD, you want it to look something like this, and then price, you want it to look something like this in a bullish divergence. All right, so let's explain why. So CVD, you want to see a lot of market sellers. So this right here, this is our reference point. All right, your reference point should be less than 30 minutes late, or it should be made 30 minutes prior than what you're looking at it. All right, so you don't want to get a reference point that was made 1 hour ago. You want it, my reference points are normally like 5 minutes, like a low is made, and then I see the absorption, right? Or this would be exhaustion, but you want the reference point to be made very recently, all right? Or it's not going to work. The reason it won't work on higher time frame than that is because the tick sizes for this, it moves. This is how NQES moves, but the delta could move like this. It's really hard to explain, but it just won't work. All right, so this shows us that there's aggressive selling coming in, right? Maybe we have aggressive selling that breaks a low. All right, but on the price scale, what do we see? We see us staying above this. All right, so that tells us there's a passive buyer right here that's absorbing all of this selling. All of this market selling is hitting into a bid, and that bid is right here. And it's able to absorb all this aggressive selling. We should be at this low. We should be down here, but we're not, because this passive buyer is absorbing the price. So that's absorption. That's literally just what it is in a nutshell. And in a bearish scenario, it's really the same thing. So the reason, I'll talk about that after exhaustion. So right here, your reference point and then CVD. All right, so we have our reference point right here, right here. Someone's absorbing price right here. Or shit, it should be a passive seller. Passive seller is holding this, right? It's keeping us from reaching this. And there's market buyers bringing price up. And they already took the low or the high out, the reference point, but we're not even able to push up there, right? They're buying, they're buying, they're buying, they're buying. All of this is happening. So they're buying, and they can't move it because someone's absorbing. All right. So there's your divergence. This is for absorption, all right? Divergence, divergence, divergence. All right. So let me show an example of this, and then we'll go to exhaustion, because right here I saw an example. All right, so you can see our reference point right here, really recent, maybe like 5, 6, 7 minutes ago. But here in this candle, we see that we have delta coming in, negative delta. All right, but we're coming in with some negative delta here. We had a bunch of negative delta coming into this low. We broke the low on the CVD, so there's your divergence. But then what happened? We started to go up. So what happens after absorption? Delta flip, right? So this candle was probably at negative 500 delta at one point. But then after that absorption occurred, after we took out that low, and we weren't able to because a block was over here, what happens? Market buyers start to come in. So there was a block right here, passive bid, and then after that absorbed all this aggressive selling, market buyers started to come in. And then we saw the delta flip on here, and then we saw us hold these prices and move higher. So the order flow kept going higher, all right? So that's an example of it. Yeah. All right, that's an example of absorption. I don't know if I'll be able to find. I mean, here's another example of absorption right next to that. I mean, this is after 9:30 open. I took longs right here on ES. So right here we have our pivot low. Pivot low. We move up. We're starting to sell down. These guys, divergence, divergence, and then there's just a block. Right here we have imbalance, but there's a block who's going bid where aggressive buyers started to come in previously. And this block is absorbing us and preventing this negative delta right here from taking us lower to this low. All right, so that's why we ended up reversing whenever we had that delta flip, right? Negative delta, now it's a delta flip, and now we're trading positives. All right, so that's absorption. Now, when we talk about exhaustion, let me draw it out. So our price, our CVD, and it's opposite of the absorption. You just switched these two, right? So your CVD, it's going to look like this. Your price is going to look like this, right? And here, price is going to look like this. CVD is going to look like this. All right, so you can see that these two flipped. So what this is telling us, all right, here the sellers are starting to get weak, right? On the delta, the market sellers are getting weak, right? This is our pivot, our reference point. They're getting weak. But on the price, it looks like we have aggressive selling, right? We took this low out. Holy shit, we're going to go lower, right? The order flow continues. But if you look at this, the aggressive sellers are getting so weak, they're not even able to take this out, even though we took it out on price. So this is what absorption would look like. They're just getting weak. They're not able to take this out. And on price, we are. So they're just getting exhausted. Exhaustion, I wouldn't suggest it for, I mean, if you see it at your level, you don't know how much further it can go. That's what the thing is with exhaustion. It could just keep going down, down, down on price, and we could be getting really close to this. So I don't like entering on exhaustion personally, but some people do. So there's your divergence. I don't know if I should go any deeper with that. It's really just common knowledge. It shouldn't be too hard to understand, right? Like here we had market buyers coming in, our pivot point, buyers were coming in. They can't even reach this, but on price it looks like we did, right? We took this high out, but if you look at the delta, market buyers are getting weak, so that's your exhaustion. So you're not going to be able to see every absorption with CVD, right? Like right here, down here we had absorption. You can't see it with the CVD. All right, but I did because I took it. All right, so this thing with CVD, sometimes you're not going to see the absorption, but you're always going to see the exhaustion happening. But you're not always going to see the absorption because you need a reference point. All right, in exhaustion, you're going to have a reference point, like almost all the time. But whenever you look for absorption, like sometimes we might just dip down and go up. Like, where's your reference point? It's not a low here because we don't have that. So someone might just absorb it right here. But yeah, that's CVD in a nutshell. It's not hard to use, but it's really helpful to use with context. Yeah, that's it.